Hey guys, welcome back to another Unreal Engine 4 tutorial. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to set up a prone system for your character. So what we're going to be able to do is if I hit play right now, I'll be able to show you. So we're in the game and you can see that we just have our character here. If we press Z, or whatever button you choose, we're going to go down into our prone position like this, and we can move around like that, and it'll be a lot slower. And we have our animation like this. If we press Z again, we're going to get back up. And also, the collision does work on this, so we can climb underneath, or crawl underneath, sorry, smaller objects or lower down objects like this. The collision works, and if we press Z to get back up while we're under here, we can't. So we can only get back up from our prone position when we can actually stand up, like now. So that's going to work perfectly, so I'll show you how to do this. And this is fully customizable, so you can use your own animations and all of this good stuff like that. So I'll show you how to do this now. So our first step is going to be to actually create it so we can prone. So basically when the player presses a button, we're going to be able to go into our prone position. So to do that, we're going to open our character blueprint. So for me, that's content, third person BP, blueprints, third person character. But for you, this could be first, third, whatever you've named it. Once we're in here, we're going to find some space, and then we're going to go up to edit up in the top left, project settings. Once this is loaded, we're going to go down to input down here, and we're going to create an action mapping. So hit the plus action mapping there. I'm just going to call this one prone. And the reason we're doing this is so we can add multiple buttons, and we can have different buttons for different consoles, and also set up key bindings. So under none here, I'm just going to set this to be Z, as that's what prone is most commonly across games. But you can choose this to be whatever you like. So I'm just going to close that, and then back in the event graph here, I'll right click, and I'm going to search for prone, and get that action mapping there. Out of this, I'm going to hold down B, left click, and get a branch, plug that into pressed there. For the condition, what I'm going to do is hit a plus variable to make a new one. I'm going to call this one prone, question mark, and like I say, that's going to be the condition. So this is basically, if we are proning, then it's not going to prone. If we're not proning, we will prone. So this is just, instead of using a flip-flop, as sometimes flip-flops can get out of sync and out of date, this just means it won't. So out of true, what we're going to do is we're going to drag prone onto there to set, and we're going to set that to false. So if we press Z and we are proning, we want to stop, as the player wants to then get back up again. So we will set that to false. Out of this, we're going to set another one, so hit plus variable again, and this one I'm going to call getting up, question mark, and I'm going to set that one to true, as the player is getting up, they're standing up. And we're doing this so we can play an animation later on. As you saw, we had a smooth transition for an animation going down and an animation for going up. This is how we're doing that. Then off of false, what we want to do is set prone to be true. So if we're not proning, we then are, and set getting up to be false, as we're not getting up, we're going down. So actually, make sure you tick the top one there. I didn't do that, so make sure you do tick it so it is true. That's for the top one, so it should look like this. Then out of the true, so set getting up equals true, we're going to hold down D, left click to get a delay, and I'm going to set this delay to be 1.3 seconds. Now I'm doing that as that is how long my animation is, but if you're using different animations, set this to be the correct speed and time for you. Then after this, what I want to do is just set our movement speed. So I'm going to get the character movement, I'm going to drag out of that. I'm just going to set max walk speed. And by the way, the character movement is up in the top left. You can just drag and drop it in. So then set max walk speed, plug that into the completed of the delay there. And I'm going to set this back to my default walking speed, which is 600. So by default, they're all 600, but if you change this, make sure to set it to that again. So then I'm going to come out the character movement again, and once again, set max walk speed. This one I'm just going to plug in to the false, so set getting up is false. And this one is going to be our walking speed when we are proned, so lying on the floor. So I want this to be 50. So when we are crawling around, we're going to be moving at 50 speed instead. So that is essentially that part done. So we're going to build upon this later, but this is the basic part done so that the animation knows we want to go to prone. So then what I'm also going to do is I want to make it so we can't jump when we're proning. As obviously if you're lying on the floor, you don't want to be able to jump. So to do that, I'm going to go find the jump code, which you should have by default. Yours will probably be up here under mouse input to the left of movement input, but just move it down here. Select the jump and stop jumping, move those out to give you some space. Hold down B, left click to get a branch and plug that into the pressed. And out of false, go into jump, like so, leave stop jumping as it is. And the condition of this is going to be prone. So basically, if the player wants to jump, if they aren't proning, they can jump. If they are proning, then they can't jump. So nothing's going to happen. I'll just double click that to get a reroute node, like so. And that should now work perfectly like that. So it's just a nice little feature that we can add. So I'm going to compile, save, minimize that, as that's all we need to do in here for the moment. And what we're going to do is we're going to set up the animations. So if we go to content, and then as I'm doing this in the third person character, I'm going to mannequin, animations, third person anim BP. Obviously, if you have your own animation blueprint, put that in there, but I'm doing this in the default one. So then what we're going to do is we're going to go over to the event graph here, and then we're going to come up, find some space, right click and get an event blueprint begin play, like so. Out of this, I'm going to cast to my character, so it's cast to third person character, like so, the object being get player character, so get player character like that. As third person character, I'm going to right click on it, promote to variable, and call this one character reference, like so. So we're just creating a reference to our character so we can use it later on. And I'll compile that, and then I'll go down to the end of this code. So for me, that is where it's setting the speed. I'm going to go down to there just so we can come off of event blueprint update animation. So basically we want to come off of that, so I'm going to go to the end of the code down here. I'm going to hold down D, left click to get a delay, plug that into there like so, and I'm just going to set this to be very short, so I'm going to set this to be 0.05 seconds. Out of the completed, I'm going to drag and drop a reference to our character reference there, so get character ref, and I'm going to get prone, so get prone question mark, right click the return value, promote to variable, and just call this one prone question mark as well, plug that into the delay, and then out of the character reference again, I'm going to get getting up question mark, and do the same thing, right click, promote to variable, call it getting up. And the reason we're doing this is just so that we can then use these variables and these booleans in this animation blueprint as well. So we compile and save, and that is that part done. So now we're going to go back to our state machine, which is here, so jump to start, and then go back to default, like so. From here, what we're going to do is create two more states, which is going to be for our proning. So I'm going to come out of the idle run, so make sure that you set this up to be how you want, so you come out of these states you want to be able to prone from. So I only want to be able to prone from idle run, not from jumping. So I'm going to come out of that state there. I'm going to then add state, and I'll call this one prone transition. So this is where we're going to have the animation going down and going up. Then drag an arrow from that back to the idle run state, like so. Then we're going to drag out of this state again, and we're going to add another state. And this one will just be called prone, and then we'll drag from that back to the prone transition, like that. Then what we're going to do is double click our prone transition to open this one up, and we're going to come out of the result here, and we're going to simply blend poses by bool, like this, meaning that we can have two different animations in here, and it will only play one depending on a boolean value, which is this getting up variable we made earlier. So the active value will be getting up that we made earlier, so drag and drop that in there for that. And so true is basically if we are standing up. So if we are standing up, we obviously want to get prone to stand, so put that into the true there like that. And if it's false, so we're not standing up, we're getting down, we'll get stand to prone like that. In here you can change the animation blends, but we don't need to do that as we're not actually going to be going from these two together, so that doesn't matter. Also, these animations I will link in the description down below. So these are just ones which I got from the marketplace for an animation starter pack, and also from Mixamo, but I've just retargeted them to work for the third person character, or the UEFill mannequin, sorry. So I'll be linking those in the description down below. I'll probably put something at the start of this video as well, as I forgot to mention it. So that is that part done. If you get any compiler errors or warnings, that's just because we haven't finished setting up yet. So once you've done that, go back to the default. So we go back to here like so, and then we're going to create the transitions. So being able to go from idle run to the prone transition, so it's these transitional nodes here. So I'm going to double click these two arrows here. So it's idle run to prone transition, double click that to open it up like so. And what this means is this is going to allow us to go from the idle run to our prone transition. So what I want to do is just get is prone, so get prone like that, equal boolean, and tick that so it's true. So if prone is true, so if we are proning, we want to go into this transition. Go back to default, and then click the one to the left of that, so prone transition to idle run. This one's going to be slightly different, as we want this one to be when an animation has finished. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and get time remaining ratio for prone to stand like that. So the time remaining on our prone to stand animation, because obviously this is going back to standing, so we want it to be from our prone to stand position. At the return value, what I'm going to do is get a less than float. So a float is less than a float. Inside this, I'm going to put it as 0.2. Return value goes in there. So basically, when the animation has less than 0.2 seconds left, what it's going to do is then go into this and transition back to the idle run blend space animation. So we can go back to default. Now we're going to do the transitions from prone transition to prone. So what these transitional nodes do is essentially it allows us to transition from these states. So I'm going to double click the prone transition to prone. This one is again going to be the same time remaining ratio thing that we did earlier. So right click, time remaining ratio. This time it's stand to prone, as we are going down to prone instead of up to stand. Return value is again going to be a float is less than a float, and it's going to be less than 0.2 seconds, like that. So it's the exact same thing before, just the other way around. So we go back to default. Now all we need to do is set up the animation for our prone. So what this is going to be is it's going to be a blend space. So we compile, save this. This is the only thing we have left to do. So we're going to minimize this and we'll right click in our animations folder here, go to animation, and then we're going to get a blend space 1D like that. Target it to your skeleton. So for me, that's the UE4 mannequin skeleton. And I'm going to call this one prone BS for blend space and open that up straight away like that. In here, we're just going to drag in our prone idle. So drag that in and put it all the way over to the left like so. And then we're going to get our prone forward and put that in the middle like that. So now if you hold down left shift and move your mouse, you can move between these two animations. So you see all the way over here, we're idle. And then when we're here, we're moving forward like so. So obviously if you have a faster prone, so you're basically sprinting, you can put it all the way over the far right here. But this is going to be good for me. So then up over the left, under the axes settings, we're going to get horizontal axes, change the name from none to speed, as that's what this is. Minimum, I'll leave it 0. Maximum, I'll leave it 100. So basically, when the speed is at 50 or above, we're going to be moving. So actually, I'll move that down to this first line here. So if it's at 25 or above, we're moving forward. If it's below that, we're idle or transitioning back to idle. So then also the interpolation time, I'm going to put as 0.5, and that's basically the transition time between these two animations, so it doesn't just snap between them. So that is all we need to do in the blend space. That is it set up. So we can save and close that. Now back in our animation blueprint, we should have this prone blend space here. We just drag and drop that in, plug that into the result there. The speed there, we can just get our speed. So get speed like so, which you should have anyway, because in the third person one, it's there automatically. And you should also have it for making your idle, walk, run blend space as well. So you can just use the same thing. So we can compile, save. We're still getting one warning. So that's because the prone to prone transition will have to be taken. So if we open that up, we can see that we didn't actually finish that one off. So we did prone transition to prone, but not prone to prone transition. So let's double click that to open it up. And so this one just wants to be get prone, get an equal boolean, and leave it as unticked. So if it's false. So if we aren't proned, we want to go back to standing up. So through all these transitions. So if we compile, this is now the blueprint done. So this is basically the basic part of prone done. So we can compile, save, minimize this. If we hit play to test it, we should see that this will actually work. So if we hit Z, you can see that we are proned. If we hit Z again, you can see we're getting up, and that works perfectly. We have the animations as well. And also if we are proned, we can't jump if we want to. But you'll notice that I have this capsule collision box visible, and so I've got that visible so we can see that it hasn't actually gone down with the player. So what's going to happen is if we try to prone or crawl underneath something, we're still going to get blocked as our collision is still up there like that, so we can't actually go through. So obviously that's not what we want, so let's fix that now. So what we're going to do is we're going to come out of this, and we're going to go back to our third person character blueprint. So third person BP, blueprints, third person character, or again, first, third, or whatever you've named it. And in here, we're going to go back to this prone code that we made earlier. Like I said, that was just basic, and we're going to come back to it. This is where we're coming back to it. So we're going to change this up a little bit. So what we want to do, before this delay here, we just want to move this out a bit. So just move that out, and we're going to hold down S, left click, get a sequence. Then 0 is going to go into the delay like so. And I'll leave that like that for the moment, as we're going to mess about with that in a minute. Then over here, after this, I'm going to right click. I'm going to add a timeline. So add timeline like so. And I'm just going to call this one prone transition as well, just so we can keep this nice and smooth. So I'll put that there. Play from start is going to go into the bottom one here. So set max walk speed to 50. We'll go and play from start. And then this sequence, then 1, will go into reverse from end like so. I'm going to double click these to add some reroute nodes to make it look a bit more organized. Like so. So what this timeline is going to do is just smoothly transition from our different values. So then what we want to do is actually move our mesh's location, so the player, and also change the size of our capsule component. So essentially what we want to do is move our player like this and change the size of our component like this. So that is going to work with the collision. So we go back to our event graph here. Out of update, we're going to drag and drop a reference to our mesh. So drag and drop the mesh like that. And we're going to set relative location, plug that into update like so. And then after this, we're going to drag and drop a reference to our capsule component, come out of that, and we're going to set capsule size like so. Plug that into the set relative location like that. So now we're going to smoothly update these. So we've done that, and what we're going to do is double click on our timeline to open it up. The length is again how long you want this to happen. So I want this to be the 1.3 seconds, which I got earlier, because that's how long my animation is. So that once you set the length, we're going to add a float track. I'm just going to call this one prone transition again, or prone track, it doesn't really matter what you name it. But then in here, we're going to right click, add a key with the time being 0, value being 0. right click, add another key, time being 1.3, so your full length value being 1. If we hit these 2 arrows here, we can then fit this to be perfect like that. But that's all we need to do in the timeline, so we can just close that like so. Then you can see we have this track here, which we can then mess about with this. So we're going to come out of this, and we're going to get a lerp vector like so. The return value of that is going to go into the new location of the set relative location like so. I'll just move these over to give us a bit more space to keep it looking a bit more nicer. And then we're going to come out of the prone track again, get a lerp float, so just a normal lerp, with the return value of this going into the in radius there. Come out of the prone track again, getting another lerp, just a normal one, the return value going into in half radius of the set capsule size, like so. And it's not going to go into A, sorry, so prone track won't be in A, it'll be in alpha, like that, as it's going to get the position between the values of A and B, which we're going to make in a minute. So like I say, this is just going to smoothly transition between A and B to get our two different sizes and positions at which we want, without it just stuttering and lagging and looking really bad. So again, I'm just going to clean this up a little bit by, again, double clicking on these wires to get the reroute nodes like so. So once you've done that, we're going to make our variables to go into the A and B values. So I already have the values that I want, but I'll show you how I got them as well, as I got these when I was just making this code earlier. So the first one we're going to make is we're going to hit the plus variable. I'm going to call this one start position, and this is going to go from a boolean to a vector. So this is going to be A on our lerp vector here. As like I say, this is going to be the start position of our player. So we can compile, so we can change the default value of that. And all we're going to do to get this is we're going to select our mesh. Actually, we'll go to the viewport as well so we can see everything. And it's going to be this position. So it's going to be our starting position, so the default location our player is in, which is obviously this. So X is 0, Y is this one, so we're going to select it, hit Control C to copy, go back into our start position, Control V to paste it into our Y, select the mesh again, and then change the Z, which is -97, so I put -97 into the Z, like so. And then what we're going to do is hit plus variable again, keeping this one as a vector again. This one is going to be called prone position, and this is basically where we want the player to be when they're proning. So I kept the Y the same, so that should already be on my clipboard, so I can hit Control V to put the Y in there. And the Z I got as -27. The reason I got -27 is I moved the player up to -27. So what I'm going to do is select the mesh, use animation asset, keep it as prone idle, so I can see what we're going to look like when we're proning. And if I move this all the way up to -27, you can see we're going to be there. Now you might wonder why we're going to be there, but we'll figure that one out in a minute. So put it as -27 for you for the moment, as I imagine you'll probably have the same or at least very similar values, but if you've changed what your character looks like, they might be slightly different. So then the next variable we're going to make is hit plus variable again. This one is going to be called stand radius. This one is going to go from a vector to a float this time. And we're going to hit compile, so we can change the value. Stand radius, what we're going to do is just select our capsule component here and get the capsule radius, which is 42. So if we select our stand radius again and just put 42 in here like so, hit compile. The next one we're going to make is prone size. So hit plus variable. This one is going to be stand height. So get stand height like so, which again, if we just select the capsule component, it's going to be the capsule half height, which is 96. So we select our variable, compile, and just put 96 in there. These will probably be the same for you if you haven't changed it. But again, I'm showing you how to get these. Then after this, if we hit plus variable again, we're going to now make prone size. So you get prone size like so. Compile, so we can change it, and I'm going to set this one to be 30, as that's what I got earlier. So if we then select the capsule component, change the capsule radius to be 30, and then change the half height to also be 30, we can see we get this little ball here, which is also where I got the value for how high I want the player to move. So you then move your mesh up to be perfectly in sync, in line with this, like so. So I can say -27. So get that to look perfect and work perfectly for you. And that is all of the variables we need to make. So we can then just put all these back to normal. So we have the start position, which was -97. So put -97 on the Z, change it back to the blueprint like so. Capsule component was, for me, 96 and 42. But again, set this back to the default you had for you. And we're just going to hitting the game like that. So we can compile, go back to the event graph. So now we're going to put these in. So start position will go into A of the lerp vector like that. Prone position will go into B. So it's going to go from the start position to our prone position like that. Then at the second lerp, we're going to get the stand radius in A and then the prone size in B. So we're going to go from our stand radius to prone size. And then the final lerp is going to be stand height to prone size like so. And again, I'll just move these to make it look a little bit nicer like so. So now that's going to smoothly transition between these values as well. So if we compile, save, we should be able to see this as well. So if we hit play, we can see our capture component. If you can't, you don't need to anyway, as you wouldn't want to, but just select it and then untick hidden in game there. So now we can see if we press Z, it's going to smoothly transition between those. So the capture component is now all the way down and the player is also there as well. And if we go up, it will do that perfectly as well. And this is just so that it doesn't jump between these two values, as we need to change these values to get the collision to work. So if we go back over here, we hit Z, we can now prone and we can actually go and crawl underneath these objects like so with our collision working. But if we're underneath it and we press Z, what's going to happen is we're just going to stand up in here, which obviously we don't want, as we can then get stuck very easily, or it just doesn't look good and it glitches out. So we're going to solve that now. So if we come out of this and go back to our third person character blueprint here, what we're going to do is we're just going to come back over to here, select all of this, so select everything after the branch and just move it out. So move it all out to give us a nice bit of space here. And we're just going to zoom in to this branch here. Out of the true, what we're going to do is we're going to get a line trace by channel. So line trace by channel like that. And then we're going to hold down B, left click to get a branch, plug that into there, return value as a condition, and we're going to come out false and go into the rest of the code like so. So basically we come out false as if this doesn't hit an object, we're not going to move. We are going to move, sorry. So if this does hit an object, nothing will happen. If it doesn't, we're going to stand up. But we need to actually be able to draw this line as well, so it knows where to hit. So to do that, what we're going to do is just going to simply get actor location, and that is just going to be the start. So it's going to start drawing this line from the player. Then we're going to right click, get actor rotation, come out of the return value, I'm going to get the up vector. So this is going to go straight up above the player. So obviously if there is something above them, they can't stand up. Out of the return value of that, we're going to get a multiply, so a vector times a float, and this is how long you want it to be. So this is the length of the line, which I found 180 was quite good. That was just reached just above the player in their standing position. So I messed about with this to get it perfect for you, and you can see how long it's going to be is if you draw debug type full duration like so, you can see the red line and see where it's going to go. Then out of get actor rotation, again, what we're going to do is we're going to get a plus, so a vector plus a vector with the bottom value as that multiplication, and plug that into the end, and that's just to keep it a straight line like so. And that is all that done. So I'm just going to double click this to get reroute nodes. But now this is going to prevent us from standing up if we are underneath something, as if we are underneath something, it's not going to do anything. But if we're not, it will stand up like so. So now if we compile, minimize, hit play to test this. If we press Z, we can go down. If we press Z again, you see we get that red line, and that's just above the player's height like so, which is where you'd want it to be. So if we press Z, we can transition in, we can move underneath this object here. If we press Z again, you can see it's hitting the roof. So it's going up and it's hitting the roof there, and we can't stand up. But as soon as we get out of here, we're going to be able to stand up straight away like that, which works perfectly. Then just to make this look a little bit nicer, all I'm going to do is get for duration, change that to none, so we don't have the line, select our capture component, and put hidden, so we don't see that in game either. And now this should look perfect. So we hit play, you see we don't get any of those. So I think the update for this video is we've done everything we wanted to do. We've created a prone system, so if we press Z or any button you want, we have a smooth transition down into our prone. If we press Z, we can get a smooth transition back up. And when we're also prone, we walk slower like so. And we've also set it up so that the collision works, so we can crawl underneath objects like this. And also when we're underneath these objects, we can't get back up, as obviously it will glitch through the wall and the roof and the floor like that. But as soon as we get out of these objects, we can stand up again like so. So that works perfectly. So thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed and I hope you found it helpful. And if you did, make sure to like and subscribe down below. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.